Guys, we're here with Erin Fester. I will let her introduce herself, but I met her at Keller Williams. She was one of the kind of silent leaders there, and I was lucky enough to follow her here to EXP. So she has a good background in investment properties and is a very successful agent. So we're just going to talk to her a little bit today about her journey, how she got into it, and the advantages and disadvantages.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Erin Fester, and I've been a real estate agent for almost 20 years now. Started professionally as a certified public accountant for 6 years and left that field to follow real estate full time. Awesome.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good background. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what year did you buy your first rental, and what kind of what was like the tipping point to get you started?
Yeah. So I started schooling at the University of Michigan. And then in the middle of my sophomore year, I just felt like it wasn't the right environment. I wanted to be somewhere where I could just finish my accounting degree quickly and kind of get out of there. So I moved back home to Grand Rapids to transfer to Grand Valley State University. And my dad said, well, if you're back in Grand Rapids, I'm not paying for housing for you. You're not going to live in the dorms or sort of on campus. And there was no way that I was moving back home. So I was motivated to find a way that I could not live at home, but it still wouldn't cost my dad anything. And at that time, this was like 96, there were 0 down loans for investment properties. And so I got my dad to sign on a loan and just said, if I find a house, I manage it, I get roommates, I make you money, will you do this for me? And he was along for the ride. And so we bought our first duplex together then. And then it just turned into a great thing where then when my little sister went to school, he bought a duplex for her. I managed it for him. Like he would just kind of be the backer financially, and I did everything with them as a college student. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good way to get in.
Yep. On Dad's money. At the beginning anyway.
So like 16 years you've had.
Well, it's a little more than that, but yeah, let's go with 16.
No, it's way more than that. Horrible math.
Yeah, stop aging me.
26. I'm an idiot.
16.
So, better. Okay. So, so you've seen the good, bad, and ugly of rentals then.
Yeah.
Went probably through some tougher times.
Yeah. Those original couple of rentals, I lived in until after college, and then when beyond college, then we actually invested in a property to do a flip, and that was unfortunately right as the market turned, and we got hit in the middle of the worst recession right in the middle of that flip. So that was one where in hindsight the timing was terrible and it just wasn't the best opportunity, but I learned a lot in that one.
Did you keep that property?
No, I mean, that one we ended up having it for 2 to 3 years, and it was a house in East Grand Rapids on a double lot. And so we separated and sold the lot, and we sold the house. And with that, we were just trying to not lose money in the process. We still ended up losing some money just because the market was so horrible. But that was a learning experience. I learned a lot in renovations and strategies in flipping, and how to protect yourself during down markets, and how much risk I'm willing to accept or not accept. And that was a big process. And at that point I had met my now husband, and so he had the chance to start going through that process as well. And his dad, growing up, his dad actually owned 40 rental properties as well. So he had kind of a background of knowing what was involved in rentals, and then he was involved in that flip as well. So we decided we like rentals better. We're not going to focus on flipping properties.
Focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me into what was like your low point besides that? Like in rentals, have you had a low point or like one really bad experience? And then on the flip side, what's one really good experience?
Yeah. I think that experience, flipping that house in East Grand Rapids, I would say was the low point. I think that helped us get really focused on what we wanted to do, and also focused on, we don't want to be as involved in renovations, and like we've become fairly handy and know how to do things. We know how to manage projects. We know how to keep costs down, or to be smart in costs so that there's longevity to a renovation and you're not constantly going back and like refixing things. So that was the low point. And then the high points, I would say, is that I think taking what we learned from that, we've applied it into kind of a strategy for how we do our rentals so that they are relatively passive income. And yes, we're involved, but it's minimally for, the money that we've made off of them.
So what would you say to a young person, based on what you just said about like kind of being able to take yourself out of the business? Like, yes, that's what most people are worried about, is they're going to get a phone call while they're having a party on the weekend and they're going to have to run out, leave their friends or whatever. I feel the same as you. You take care of your properties, you put in the new furnace right out of the gate, the water heater, the dishwasher, the roof is good, those types of things. You can take yourself right out other than a text here or there.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who's 22, they don't want to pay rent anymore, they're living in a duplex already, they could own their own duplex and rent the other side out to someone else? What would you say to them? Like just a couple things of advice to get going.
Yeah. I think you can start where you are. So the first property I got, I had the benefit of a parent who could co-sign and make that happen. But I also have a lot of younger clients, my son included now, who their first home is a relatively modest single family home that's not maxing out their budget of what they're able to pay, and then they get roommates. And so the first property I was in, it was a duplex, but I had 2 roommates living with me and we had 3 people living downstairs. And so that created a buffer of not being worried every month about the rent coming in or having one person drop out. Same for my son right now with his current house. He bought a house that was a low down payment house. So he put down what he had, and then he's got 2 roommates living there with him. So the rents coming in are equal to what his mortgage is. He's splitting the utilities with his roommates. So instead of him paying, he was paying $700 a month plus utilities on his last place. Now he owns it. He's $200, $300 a month in it.
Living for free, basically.
Yeah, he's building equity, and couple years, 3 years, 4 years, if life circumstances change and he wants something else, he can keep this as a rental and move up to the next house. And so I think a lot of people get stuck in, I don't have 20% down payment for an investment property. How do I even get into it? And there's other ways to start. You also can do, improvements to the property yourself, like buy the ugly house and do learn how to do things, learn how to replace flooring or, paint or install a new bathroom vanity, and start doing those things to the house so that you're building that sweat equity. That helped us as well.
And doing it young just sort of compounds, making it easier to buy your next house. The first one is scary, there's no doubt about it, but the second one then becomes very simple, and then from there the scalability of that is just so much easier. Plus you're doing it usually before you're married and kids and all the other things most people have going on, which makes it hard to own rental properties. So
well, and actually before I got married I was a single mom, so my first house that I bought on my own without my dad was a house with an in-law apartment in it. So the money that was kind of made on those rentals, my dad split with me, and so I had some down payment funds then for my first house, and that was the only way I could afford it as a single mom, was to have an extra rent payment coming in from the in-law apartment to be able to pay for daycare. So
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So you took a bad situation, or a situation that would have been tough to
Mm-hmm.
buy a home in, and you found a way to do it, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of what we're about in real estate, is overcoming obstacles, or helping our clients overcome obstacles, because it's always possible. And now with rent being as expensive as it is, it almost makes more sense to own.
Correct.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, you're welcome.